Let me ask you an age-old question. What makes a good sequel? I'd say it's a movie that does more. Expand the lore by showing us parts of the world we never saw before. Challenge the characters in new, bigger ways. Take whatever technology the last one pioneered and push it even further to bring a previously impossible story to life. By doing all these things, and doing them well, you can end up with a story that is fresh and unique while still feeling like a logical continuation of
Warning, F-22 Raptor approaching.
an F-22, but that's an airplane. How can you fly in space when there's no air?
Come here, mutt.
What are you?
How can you not recognize the mighty Starscream?
Wait, Starscream? What the hell happened to you? Why do you look so...
Budget cuts! Those insects over at Paramount cut my entire budget. I was once a star in one of the most successful movie franchises of all time. But then scum like you stopped watching my movies. Apparently, they weren't good enough for the people who made Minions gross $1 billion. And so I was out of a job.
You mean the Transformers movies? I actually liked them, or the first one at least.
As I've observed. Which is why you will do me a favor. You are going to watch the sequel on this old diagnostic monitor. And you are going to say honest, nice things about it in front of that camera. So I can show it to Paramount and convince them to rehire me.
Oh yeah? What's in it for me?
Your ticket home.
Right. Well, looks like I'm watching Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen this, evening, I think? So, Transformers 1. No, like, the first one. I mean the first live-action one. What the hell? Transformers 2007. It was a big success. And so it was no surprise when we received a sequel in 2009. And that sequel starts with a revelation. Transformers have been on Earth since the Stone Age. And that's kinda it. We already get this information much later in the movie, so this scene feels slightly unnecessary. Especially since the very next scene would have already been a near perfect opening. For one, the action is absolutely brilliant, but more importantly, we learn that after the events of the first movie, Autobots and humans have formed a secret group called the Nest to hunt down remaining Decepticons. We also get introduced to some of the characters we'll be seeing throughout the film, and all this is done in a way that feels really smooth and organic.
Yes, that's the spirit. At this rate, I will be rehired in no time.
If the rest of the movie can maintain this level of quality, that is. We cut to Sam, who's about to leave home to start college, which makes his mom quite sad.
It's your little baby booties.
So, when I was 10 years old, I used to rewatch these movies several times a day, every day, for at least a few weeks on this little portable DVD player we had. And the result is that things like baby booties are seared into my brain. Hearing them again makes me feel like a sleeper agent. Sam finds a shard of the destroyed Allspark left inside an old hoodie, which promptly burns a hole in the floor, falls to the kitchen, and brings all the kitchen appliances to life. They wreck the house, but then Bumblebee comes out of the garage and saves the day. Kinda. We then cut to a Nest base in Dave Garcia. The Autobots and humans are doing the briefing when National Security Advisor Galloway shows up to question why the Decepticons haven't left yet. After all, they came here looking for Megatron and the Allspark, but now that both are destroyed, the only thing left of them on Earth are the Autobots. So surely, they must be here to hunt them. I actually have a lot to say about this scene, but I will save that for much later. Trust me, it will be worth the wait. The Decepticons are secretly listening in to the conversation, and by doing so they discover the location for another charge that remains of the Allspark, and the location of Megatron's corpse. They then promptly use this knowledge to steal the shard so they can revive him with it. Meanwhile, Sam is moving into his college dorm and we meet his new roommate Leo. This scene is 5 minutes long. But it feels like 15, because there's always someone screaming or yelling, the topic of the characters are doing and talking about keeps changing every 5 seconds, people start rambling and jumping at each other at one point. It's as if everyone was suddenly struck with severe ADHD and snorted 300 lines of crack right before the scene took place. And I wouldn't be making such a big deal out of this, if not for the fact that the majority of the film from now on is like this. Just constant overstimulation for the next 2 hours. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's see what Megatron is up to. He flies to what I will assume is Saturn's moon Enceladus, where he meets up with Starscream. Turns out, Starscream took command of the Decepticons in Megatron's absence, which Megatron isn't fond of, for even in death, there is no other command but his.
And then he immediately heads off to his own master with the Fallen. I'm telling you, I would have been a far better leader than Megatron ever was. For I would actually be a leader, unlike that weak-minded frontman.
Dude, you can't even lead Paramount executives towards accepting a job application.
Why, you little locust! Ah!
As he was saying, Megatron goes and has a chat with his master the Fallen, who tells him that the powers of the Allspark follow the first law of thermodynamics. For you see, the knowledge it contained cannot be destroyed, only transformed, and it has been absorbed by Sam Witwicky. Which sucks for him, because he's starting to go crazy and is drawing weird symbols everywhere. Worse yet, this one girl apparently thinks that imminent insanity is super hot. Also, this RC car Decepticon tries to steal the Allspark shards Sam found, and so his girlfriend Michaela puts him in a box before flying over to Sam. I needed to mention this for the plot synopsis, but I couldn't find a better place for it, so yeah. Anyway, the horny girl turns out to be a Decepticon disguising as a human. So Michaela, Sam, and Leo, for some reason, run away while the Decepticon gives chase. They manage to run it over, only to get picked up by another Decepticon, who brings them to Megatron. He, alongside this tiny spider robot, decides to extract Sam's brain so they can gain access to the Allspark knowledge contained inside. Something I find really interesting is just how varied the Transformers are in this movie. Like, we get everything from humanoid bots to tiny humanoids, Jaguar-looking things, worms, flies, pogo sticks, etc. It begs some really interesting questions about what Transformer society must be like. I mean, you look at something like Homo sapiens, and despite them all being comparatively similar, it's a big challenge to make everything accessible to everyone. So imagine how difficult that sort of thing must be for a species like the Transformers, where there's near limitless variation in size and anatomy. Come to think of it, are Transformers even a single species in these movies? Or are they more like a taxonomic kingdom? Think how everything from ants to dogs all belong to the animal kingdom. The Michael Bay films never get anywhere close to answering these questions, but they're interesting nonetheless. Anyway, just as Sam's brain is about to be put on a table, Optimus and Bumblebee crash the party. Then Optimus takes on the Decepticons to protect Sam, while Bumblebee brings Leo and Michaela to safety. What follows might just be the best scene in the entire movie. I just love how the pace of this battle is largely dictated by Optimus' emotional state. Like, at first he's just pounding on Megatron trying to throw him back into the grave, but once two other Decepticons join the fight, his priorities shift. He's no longer trying to actually defeat anyone, he's just doing everything he can to slow them down so Sam can escape. But as he gets beaten to a pulp, he realizes that he's outmatched, and so he becomes desperate and frantic. He uses every last bit of energy he has to stop the Decepticons from getting Sam. Not only because he wants to keep his friends safe, but because he knows that if the Decepticons get what they want, it's probably gonna spell the end for humanity as a whole. But alas, he's outmatched and tired out, and so Megatron is able to kill him. And Optimus' death is actually somewhat effective, since we've seen him grow more and more desperate and weak as the fight progresses. He chooses to fight for Sam even though he knows he won't survive. Granted, it would have been far more emotionally impactful if we had actually spent a decent amount of time with Optimus in this movie, but still. With Optimus Prime dead, the Decepticons decide to reveal themselves to humanity, demanding humans to find Sam or suffer the consequences. Sam thus becomes a fugitive, and all hope seems lost. But then he realizes that the symbols he keeps seeing in his head might be a clue to something that can save them, and Leo just so happens to know someone who can help decode said symbols. Turns out, that someone is Monk's brother!
I'm sorry.
What are you talking about?
I am directly below the enemy scrotum.
With the help of that Decepticon Michaela has been keeping in a metal box this whole time, they figure out that the only one who can decode the symbols in Sam's head is an old Blackbird Transformer who's been sitting in a museum for Lord knows how long. So they go to the museum and reactivate him using Sam's Allspark shard. This guy's name is Jetfire. Jetfire should be a fun character. I mean, yeah, his personality is the old cranky person stereotype, but I like that stereotype. Trouble is, however, 90% of his dialogue is either exposition or just random words that barely make sense together. Like here for example, he's talking about his former boss, the Fallen, then he talks about his mission for like 2 seconds. Then he randomly spouts some riddle about his mission for another 2 seconds before he just suddenly teleports everyone to Egypt. Without warning, or explanation, or any indication that that was ever a thing he could do. And once everyone realizes they're in Egypt, he goes on to info dump about the Fallen. Okay, so it turns out, way back in the day, the 7 original Primes built a machine that harvested stars to create energy on, the lifeblood of a Transformer. And when looking for stars to harvest, they had one rule: never destroy a planet with life. But then Mr. the Fallen over here was like, yeah, I hate humanity, so I'm just gonna turn on that machine and destroy them. Why does he hate humanity? I don't know. I mean, these days you could point to all kinds of reasons to hate humanity. They don't exactly have a good track record. But this was all during, like, the Stone Age. It's easy to forget now, but before civilizations became a thing, humans really weren't that unique from any other animal. So I'm not sure why the Fallen had such beef with them. Whatever, in order to activate the Sun Harvester, you need a thing called the Matrix of Leadership. And so the original Primes hid it somewhere in Egypt, so the Fallen couldn't use it. Incidentally, the Matrix is so full of energy that it could be used to revive Optimus Prime. And since only a Prime can defeat the Fallen, the plan is now to find the Matrix, use it to revive Optimus, and watch as he reduces the Fallen to a fine metallic mist. But getting back to Jetfire, he's done feeding us exposition. So surely now his personality can truly... Oh, he just up and left for no reason. Even though he, Sam, and the rest of the gang all have the same goal of stopping the Fallen. Cool. Moving on, the gang does some stuff until they found the location of the Matrix, which promptly turns to dust. Dust that Sam puts into his sock, hoping that somehow, some way, the plan will still work. Also, Monk's brother calls the military, asking them to bring the body of Prime. But on their way to said body, they get attacked by Starscream.
Oh, God, please, God, please.
Stop freaking out.
I agree with Michaela, please shut up. Why is this guy even here? Come to think of it, why are most of the main cast here? I do quite like the chemistry between the main characters. Michaela, Wheelie, Sam, and Monk's brother work pretty well together. In fact, those last two work really well together. Leo is honestly just annoying. Skids and Mudflap can also be annoying, but they're at least tolerable. And then Bumblebee is just there and has nothing. Now notice how I barely mentioned those last 4 up until now. In fact, I'm not sure I mentioned Skids and Mudflap at all. And that's because they add close to nothing to the actual plot. Bumblebee acts as our transport for the humans, and Leo is the reason they met up with the Monk's brother. But aside from those very minor things, you can remove all 4 of them from the movie and it would change basically nothing. Doesn't help that 3 of the barely relevant characters are basically Jar Jar Binks. But getting back on track, our main cast split up, with Sam, Michaela, and Bumblebee going off to find Optimus' body, while the other 4 go off to draw the Decepticons' fire. Wait a minute, there's only 7. We're missing someone. Yeah, really. I just now realized that he's disappeared. I got to 1 hour and 35 minute mark, he just ceased to be a part of this movie. Regardless, some Decepticons combine to form a much bigger Decepticon in an effort to tear down one of the pyramids. For it turns out that the solar harvester from earlier was hidden inside all along. It's now up to Monk's brother to contact the military so they can shoot down the giant Decepticon before it fully reveals the Sun Harvester.
I am directly below enemy scrotum.
What's that look in your face? You expect me to make some funny remark, perhaps? Oh, you don't get it, do you? This is masterful writing. Think back to the college dorm scene. Leo was talking about a website he uses to convince people that alien robots are real. But Sam was trying to deny it, for national security reasons. And in response, Leo told Sam not to suck the sack. The mainstream media sack. And now, when the alien robots are their most dangerous, we are faced with their balls. For the balls are concealed inside the ball sack, much like how the alien robots were concealed within the lies of mainstream media. It's a deep, poetic reflection of the true nature of the mainstream media landscape, and how it affects our very perception of reality. But putting my love of balls aside, the giant Decepticon gets blown up. Did you know that this thing holds a Guinness World Record for the most complicated computer graphics model ever made, consisting of 11,716,127 polygons? For comparison, I consist of 728 polygons. So that's one giant robot, or over 16,000 of me. What a horrible thought. Yeah, if you thought the first movie was visually impressive, this movie is somehow on the way to be even more impressive. In fact, let me tell you a story, to show you just how good this movie's special effects are. So I was looking at this shot, where the Decepticon Soundwave is hacking a satellite, and I thought to myself, gee, look at how well the CGI robot interacts with this real world satellite. Like the reflections and stuff are perfect. And then it occurred to me, given that the robot and background in this scene are both CGI, the actual satellite itself is almost definitely CGI too. But it looks so good that, because satellites are things that exist and can be built in real life, my brain just assumed it was real. Now the Michael Bay Transformers films do use a lot of practical effects, so this satellite might have been a physical miniature or something, but the fact that I'm uncertain is a testament to how good the CGI in this movie is. It's at a point where literally the only thing that makes any of this look fake is the fact that I know giant robots physically cannot be built in real life. But the VFX in this movie isn't just more impressive than in the previous film, it's more ambitious. And I'm not just talking about Mr. World Record Testicles over here. There are more robots with more screen time, with more close-ups, and doing more things than before in more complicated ways than before. But looking past the pure CGI stuff, the overall look of the movie remains largely the same as in the first movie. I will say though, it is far more colorful. Like the first one had this emphasis on a blue and orange color scheme, which looked fine, but Revenge of the Fallen brings a lot more colors into the mix. It's no John Wick, but still, it looks good. But I've gone way off track, so let's see what the hell is going on here. Okay, so Sam and Michaela try to run to Optimus' body, but because there's a big robot battle going on, everything explodes and Sam dies. But in death, he's visited by the original Primes, who tell him that the Matrix leadership is not found, it is earned. And then Sam wakes up again and the Matrix stops being a pile of dust. So I guess Sam didn't deserve the Matrix until now, even though he has had the exact same motivations and goals ever since learning it even existed. Though I suppose that earning the Matrix despite not having a character arc is pretty on brand for the Thing. Regardless, it goes ahead and revives Optimus with the Thing. He looks like how I feel when I wake up in the morning. Before Optimus is even able to stand up, the Fallen shows up and steals the Matrix. It doesn't turn to dust this time, so I guess the person trying to end humanity is just as, if not more worthy, than the person trying to save it. The Fallen start the Solar Harvester's activation sequence while Jetfire, who returned out of nowhere only to be mortally wounded by a scorpion, gives up his own life so Optimus can use his parts and become the most powerful Autobot to ever bought automatically. And the fight scene that follows kinda sucks, if I'm being honest. Like visually it's kinda cool, but Megatron and especially the Fallen barely put up a fight. Like this Fallen guy is supposed to be the strongest of the original 7 Primes, so powerful that only a fellow Prime could ever possibly defeat him. We've been waiting for the entire movie to finally see what this ancient, super evil, teleporting robot is like in a fight. And then he gets killed by Optimus in literally 30 seconds. But even if Optimus had actually struggled during this fight, it would still lack tension since Optimus may as well be immortal. What I mean is, in this movie he's already been killed and revived, so even if he got killed in this battle, he could just be unkilled again. However, this lack of tension could be fixed by the Solar Harvester. Have you ever watched the anime Neon Genesis Evangelion? Ever noticed how at least half the battles in that show feature a literal timer? That's there to add tension. It's no longer just a question of will the heroes survive the fight, it's a question of will the heroes defeat the bad guys before it's too late. And in this fight, it's of course a question of will Optimus be able to defeat the Fallen, turn off the Solar Harvester before it destroys Earth's sun. Or at least it would be, except Optimus blows up the damn thing before he even starts fighting. So the tension and stakes just cease to exist. Prime could literally just leave the fight and the worst thing that's gonna happen is the Decepticons will continue to be a mild nuisance. But with the anticlimactic final battle over, the day is saved, and we can finally roll credits. So that was Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Have you ever watched a movie or played a game and, regardless of how good or bad it is, something just feels off about it? And then you learn something about the thing's development and suddenly every bad or bizarre decision just makes so much sense. Like finding the final clue that instantly solves the entire mystery. That's this movie, and learning that it was written during a writer's strike.
How inspired! Mentioning that this movie was written while the writers went on strike. Never seen anyone do that before.
Yeah, I know, it's a pretty well known fact about this movie these days. And normally I try to find unique things to say about the movies I look at. But you really can't talk about Transformers 2 without mentioning it, cause it just makes sense out of literally everything. Why is half the main cast irrelevant to the plot? Because the movie was barely written. Why do even key characters just disappear from the movie sometimes? Because the movie was barely written. Why is there so much exposition to the point that some characters' whole existence is basically just to explain the backstory? Because the movie was barely written. Hell, remember earlier how I mentioned this movie is extremely overstimulating? Even that can be explained by the writer's strike. They knew the movie's story would be a hot mess, but didn't want the whole thing to just be a boring slog, so they overcompensated. There's always someone making a joke, something's constantly exploding, people and robots are constantly getting tossed around every corner is some strangely sexual moment. Something is always happening to ensure that the audience will not get bored. But ironically, the movie's hyperactivity is what makes it boring. Your brain never gets time to process the bazillion things that just happen, so after a while it just stops trying, the entire movie just becomes background noise. And background noise isn't very entertaining.
Why, you insolent, flea-bitten mutt! I didn't bring you here just to hear yet another insect complain about this film.
Look, I'm sorry, and I really mean it, I really do feel sorry. Because this movie could have been something great. It is all the makings of an excellent sequel. The world is bigger, the characters are challenged in new ways, the tech is pushed even further than before to enable all this, and on top of that, many of the ideas this movie brings to the table are legitimately good. Autobots and humans working together, only for their cooperation to fall apart due to government ignorance, is a great idea. Sam starting to go insane in the same way his great-grandfather did is a great idea. Optimus being killed off to both challenge the surviving characters and create a sense of genuine danger and consequence is a great idea. But the actual writing exploring these ideas is a mess. If you want an example of everything that is right and wrong with this film, then look no further than the nasty briefing scene. The editing is good, the cinematography is great, the acting is solid, and the VFX and animation is absolutely jaw-dropping. Not to mention, the music and sound design is excellent. There's just one teeny tiny little problem. The writing is absolutely abysmal. First of all, it's more exposition. A really clunky exposition too. Mr. Galloway here literally interrupts the conversation to say,
"Now, what do we know so far?"
and then goes on to explain where a remaining shard of the Allspark is hidden and where Megatron's corpse is hidden. It sounds so bluntly that may as well face the camera and say, "Hey, you, watching this movie? Pay attention, cause I'm gonna tell you the backstory now." Doesn't help that literally everyone in this room should already be aware of the information being given, so there's almost no reason for him to give it. But the worst part is, this little exposition dump completely destroys the entire point of this scene. See, the point here is that Galloway believes the Autobots should leave Earth. Why? Because the Decepticons came here looking for the Allspark. And since it was destroyed in the last movie, it's reasonable to assume that the Decepticons are only here to hunt the Autobots and will thus leave if the Autobots leave. But then he himself points out two things that the Decepticons could very well be after. And no one acknowledges that they're using it against them! Like, gee, I wonder why the Decepticons are still here. Surely it isn't because of that fragment of an ultra-powerful artifact that they just mentioned for no reason. The one that we had to put in a top-secret security facility, as if there's a chance someone would want to steal it. And the reason I'm making such a big deal out of this is because the writing is to a movie what a foundation is to a house. The acting, visuals, music, sound design, editing, etc., they are all in service of the storytelling, the writing. If the story isn't good, then the entire movie is gonna fall apart like a house of cards on a glass surface. And that's exactly what happened with Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen. It's a movie with tons of passion and great ideas, one that could have been both an excellent film in its own right as well as a great sequel to the original. But instead it just went down in history as one of those iconic bad films like the 90s Mario Brothers movie or Howard the Duck. All the ingredients are here for something incredible, but there's no recipe. And so unless you're studying filmmaking or whatever, I just can't recommend this.
Locust, vermin, flea-bitten mongrel. I told you to praise this movie so I could get my job back.
But you told me to say honest things about
Honest, nice things. We're gonna try again. And this time, I'm gonna tear off on your insect legs every time you say something bad.
Look, if you wanted me to be positive, then why didn't you let me review a different Transformers movie like, I don't know, Transformers 3?
What did you say?
You know, Dark of the Moon? Some people seem to actually like that one, and I know you have some pretty big moments in it, so...
Don't you ever mention that movie again, you half canine scum!